Good morning. I just wanted to spend a few minutes with you and make some comments about where we are and what's coming this week and in the coming weeks. First of all, I want to say an honest, on behalf of the elders, thank you for all of those who have been working on the online services. They're very good. We've had a lot of good comments from you guys, and those are appreciated. And you're watching them. That's the important part. It is important to us that you feel like we have that experience as close to coming to a church service as possible. So thanks to all that were involved with that. By the way, those services that are online were certainly intended for our congregation, but they're viewed fairly widely. We have Sister Callis in Virginia. If you're watching this, we want to say thank you for the card and gift. For very, very appreciated, and some wonderful words there. I want to thank everyone in the congregation for their steadfastness. Our giving has been difficult for some of you, but you've done it. And we know that you're viewing the services online, and we appreciate that so much. What we also know is that we are all kind of anxious to get back together. Just nothing like it, where we're in one place. I also just want to say I appreciate our governor, our leaders, locally and nationally too. But our governor has laid out some guidelines. So when we do get together, they're based on some science and good common sense. The elders have spent a considerable amount of time discussing how we do this and how the guidelines can be met. Another avenue that we wanted to do was put together a committee of those involved in worship anyway, and that committee was formed. I want to thank Brandon Rice and Alex Nelson, Jared Pack, Robert Shepard, Tim McEwen, and that committee was led by our brother elder Marion Bailey. They spent hours talking about how do we meet those guidelines and make this come together. Well, let's get into it. The first question before us is when. The opportunity is there now. We can do it, but what makes more sense? Well, after some discussion there, we think we can have our act together, so to speak, on May 31st, which is just a few days from now. And so let's shoot for May 31st, is what we decided. Well, the next question is how, and this is the hard part. Let's look at some of the governor's guidelines and how we can do that. One guideline that we must keep in mind: if you're over 10 years old, you need to wear a mask. In fact, mask is mandatory above 10 years old. Under 10, just practicality. The child isn't going to keep it on, and it's going to be difficult. We all know that we have to do this term social distancing at 6 feet so that we don't spread the virus that way. Touching each other is something we love to do. We love to shake hands and hug each other, but we can't do that. So touching. Hand washing, the use of hand sanitizer quite a bit to keep the virus off of our hands as we touch ourselves and seats and different things is important. One more thing in the guidelines, if you have a fever or don't feel very good, it might just be a cold, and you may be convinced that it's just a cold, but you can't come. The guidelines say that if you have any of those symptomatic things, any kind of a fever, it's best that you don't meet with people. One thing, too, that science has learned about this disease, you know what the best disinfectant is? Time. I know there's a lot of conversation about different surfaces that the virus lands on. How long will it live? Some surfaces might be 3 days, some might be even shorter. But we are pretty sure, from what we read, that 7 days does a pretty good cleaning, along with the other special building cleaning that we have our custodial service do. 7 days is going to be a pretty well good way to sanitize a space. So, back to the how. Understanding some of those guidelines, and there are more, but the recommendation is that we do have 2 services, just from the practicality of it. We want to call one of the services our Young Family Service. You remember I mentioned that children 10 and under really aren't going to do well with the mask. So, and we have a lot. We're blessed in that way to have a lot of families with children 10 and under. So, beginning at 11 o'clock, that group with children 10 and under would meet in the fellowship hall, and we are going to attempt to have a service as close to what you're used to, as normal as possible. We're going to try and limit it to 1 hour, and so that will happen in the fellowship hall beginning at 11. Now, if a child is 11 and up, this may be a little bit difficult, but a mask is required. And obviously all the rest of us, we have to put on those masks and wear them. It's going to make singing a little bit hard, but one thing someone told me the other day, you got to remember who we're singing to. I bet it will sound good to the Lord if we do that. The other service will begin at 9:30, and that will be in the main auditorium. One thing you'll notice when you get here, we have the movable pew furniture. So both places have been set up with that pew furniture in such a way to help with that social distancing thing. So there are singles and doubles and triples. So what you need to do when you get here is find a seat, with as many places to sit as you need. And I realize we hadn't seen each other in a long time, and we really want to visit. I want to visit. We want to hug and talk and discuss, but let's try and keep that to a minimum. Go on in and find your seat that will fit your family, and we'll resume that way. Incidentally, I know a lot of the large congregations are doing it, and we really would like to have a third service. And we have a large group who might be considered most vulnerable. And we all know who we are. We're 65 and up, or we're people with a medical condition that just makes it a little more vulnerable. That's the only word. But we only have the 2 venues, if you consider the 7-day thing, where we can do that. So the most vulnerable, if you choose to come, will be in that 9:30 setting in the auditorium. So, recap a little bit. Young families, no mask. The service at 11 o'clock, which is the second service. The rest of us that wear a mask, first service at 9:30. Now, again, I want to thank those who put so much thought and effort into this. And you're going to find out when you get here how communion is handled and other things. What was the first governor's recommendation? That was a test question. Well, the first recommendation that he made, for those that watched that, was that if you've got an online situation where you can stay at home, we recommend that you do that. So what I want to say to you now is, if you feel vulnerable, if you feel like coming here is putting you in an undue situation, our intent right now is to continue our online services and do the best job that we can with it, and we want you to know that that will be available. They'll be made available around 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, and you can stay home and have the same sermon that you would hear if you were at the building. So again, we want to be sensitive to this. I know there are folks that rightfully feel if the doors are open, I ought to be there. But I want you to consider, in this situation, is that so? If you feel vulnerable, you oughtn't to be here. So there are families with very young children who feel strongly about that. There are older folks who maybe shouldn't. So we hope that the videos will help in that regard. Well, I want to say God bless you to all the congregation. And again, thank you for your steadfastness, for your care for one another. You're calling each other, you're checking on each other. And we know this is happening and want to continue to do that. And bear with us if we hiccup doing something, but our goal is to begin the process of reopening and coming back together. So thank you for listening, and God bless you all.